Welcome to the R4R podcast, name to be determined, but this is an offshoot of the Running for Resilience community where we're trying to make Canberra suicide-free by 2033. We believe that no one is destined for suicide and that each and every person can overcome whatever struggle they're facing. We hope to add to that goal, achieve the goal by this podcast through sharing stories, building belief in the listener that they can overcome their own struggle, but also building belief within our community amongst all the listeners that a suicide-free Canberra is possible because no one is destined for suicide. We're going to talk about our own struggles, mental health in general, but also what we're seeing with R4R and why we think a suicide-free Canberra is possible. We hope to get many guests from within the R4R community and hopefully many hosts as well from within the R4R community. Our first guest, so to say, is certainly from within the R4R community. He's a former Wallaby, a former Brumby. He's a pub co-owner, which is every Australian's dream. He's a dad, a husband. He's also a great friend, but he's a co-founder in the engine room behind R4R. It's Benny A. Here we are.
Here we are indeed, mate.
I had a question that I was going to ask you, but I've changed it last minute because I think the energy is at an all-time high. You think a suicide-free Canberra is possible?
I do.
Why?
Because when we started, you didn't really tell me this at the very beginning when we started it, but you said you wanted to create it to help your dad. For people who don't know, we'll get to your dad's story probably in the conversation, but you wanted to create something that would have helped your dad when he was struggling, to help that one person.
Yeah.
And so in the early days, it was, we didn't have this grandiose goal of a suicide-free Canberra. We just wanted to make it easier for people to exercise with friends, and that was something that really helped me during a really, really tough time. And I'm not to say I would have committed suicide without R4R, but it's absolutely helped me during some really tough times. So I felt the benefits of it personally during some really, really tough moments, transitioning out of sport and through a once in 100-year pandemic and the impact that had on our business and the stress through that, how R4R really helped, didn't solve all my problems, but helped me through it. So I felt the benefits. I felt that it's really helped me during some times I was not thinking about taking my life, but when I was in a really, really bad way. So it's helped me. And then we also started getting messages from people saying the same thing. So we only just had this one run a week, but probably a year or two in, around the birthday, I think it was the first or the second birthday, you started getting messages from people saying, "Thank you, this helped save my life." And then we had Heidi Prowse, who was CEO of MEAC, Mental Illness Education, ACT. She came up one Wednesday night and spoke to the group and said how she'd been told that a few people had told her that running for resilience had helped save their life. So I was like, oh, wow, okay. We already helped 4 or 5 lives just that I knew of in the first couple of years. And then you and I were talking and, you said, there's certainly people who are born who are at a higher risk of suicide, through all sorts of factors, through childhood and socioeconomic, but it's not written in their DNA that when you're born, you will die of suicide like that. It might be the case with cancer and other illnesses that your genetics can make, you're probably going to pass away that way. Yeah. But like you said, I agree with you when you said it, that no one is destined for it. So therefore it's preventable. And just through hearing the stories, what we're going to share today, through my own and through hearing from others, that R4R has helped them, I think that it is possible. And we've started to see evidence with the suicide rate has dropped 44% between 2021 and 2023. So I can just feel it. I feel it's possible. I don't feel that it's absolutely certain, but I can feel that it's possible. And that belief, it's a hard thing to describe, but I can feel it.
It feels right. And like you said, 44% reduction in suicide figures from 2021 to 2023. It's certainly not all us, but like you say, we wouldn't be hurting it from what we're seeing. R4R, as you said, has saved lives. How did it improve your struggle? How did it help you? I know how it helped mine, but what about R4R was the medicine, so to say, to help?
Well, it was two things that I was getting from parkrun initially. It was probably three things. And so when I think it was a few days after I retired, my grandmother was dying around the same time. So, I thought I was ready to retire. Grandmother was found out she was dying. She was going to pass away very soon with cancer. So I was in a pretty bad way. And a mate texted me going, mate, hey, mate, do you want to come do parkrun on Saturday? This was literally like the day or two after I retired. And I was like, mate, parkrun, what? Like, I've just retired from sport, mate. I don't want to do any more running. Like, I hated it. Running was like it was fitness. It was like a send as a penalty for eating too much. And he goes, come to parkrun. And I said, oh, right, I'll come. Guess I got to try and stay fit in retirement. And I was feeling awful rocking up to it. I remember that whole week, tight chest, brain fog, I was feeling really, really no energy, feeling like crap. But I rocked up. We did the 5K and we went and got brekkie after, and I felt like old me.
Yeah.
It was just so clear. I could feel it. Like I felt crap an hour before, but then I did the run, went and had coffee, and we had a bit of a chat with two of my best mates, and I felt normal again. And then gradually, 2 or 3 days later, I started feeling crap again, and we do parkrun again the next week, and I'd feel great again. So it was so that exercise, I knew how important exercise was, and now that I wasn't a professional athlete, not getting paid to exercise or have exercise as my work, I knew I had to try and fit it into my week somehow. So it was the exercise, so endorphins, helps you feel good, stay fit, all that good stuff. So it made exercising easier, because if I have to do it on my own, it just doesn't get done. If I've just got to...
It's harder.
It's so much harder. Yeah, and I might still go for the odd run, but when I know I've got friends there, there's a set time, I sort of work my calendar around, and I end up getting there and getting it done. So it's the exercise. Then the thing with parkrun was it really helped me re-engage, like hang out more with my old uni friends. So like I'd been so absorbed into my rugby. I don't hung up with my rugby mates all day, but then a lot of them have all left Canberra, and so I needed friends to hang out with. I didn't have a job when I retired other than just the odd shift down at the pub. So parkrun every Saturday, getting to catch up with my mates, just helped me re-engage. Well, re-engage is not the right word, but just hang out with my old mates more that I hadn't hung out with much when I was, always travelling with rugby. And it was just the reality that, I was away with footy heaps. So it got me to hang out with my friends more and make new friends. And so we had a great little thing going. And then the third thing, so that was what I was getting with parkrun. And we can talk about how after I started later, but that period, that first 18 months after I retired, parkrun, geez, it really did a lot for me.
Helped you.
It really, really helped me during that really, really rough patch. I'd started a startup. I'd retired to do a startup, and I'd probably about a week or two before you emailed me, we'd parted ways. So I was the only time my wife had ever called me lost, because I retired to do this startup and split with my business partner and put a ton of money into it. So I wasn't in a great spot when you emailed. But I think the third thing that after I really now helps me is also having I love my family. They give me purpose, but I also, was so lucky playing sport for my country and my city that I love. It gave me a lot of purpose with my work. I rock up to training and I want to represent the region as best I could. But now with RFRR and my other work, it also gives me a purpose with my work on top of family stuff.
Purpose.
A shared purpose, and hanging out with people who have that shared purpose, I think, is a really, really special feeling. And it's one I didn't feel for a long time, from retiring till only recently with RFRR, as we become a formal entity. Everyone's all working towards this goal. So those three things: it was the exercise, the community, and the purpose.
Yeah. The way he sums it up, exercise, community, purpose. I think that's why it feels right. Those three things, you just know, add value to your life. And so when things are going tough, I think the consistency, it was one of the things you said at the start. No, we've got to do it every week. Because I think I was like, maybe we do it once a month. When we were just talking about when RFRR started, we've got to do it every week. So people don't have to think about it. It's on. It's always on. Unless there's lightning like we had recently. But I think the consistency helped me. But what's coming to my mind is the words from Lily when she shared in her newsletter. It's a great way to get out of your head. I think if you're in the throes of, when you do have that tight chest, or if you feel like you're on edge or fight or flight all the time, when you have that moment where you said you feel normal again, it relaxes you. I remember when I had it, and I guess we probably need to address this, there's a lot of backstory to, like, there's obviously your story, there's my story, there's a lot that wouldn't fit into this podcast, but I think this R4R podcast is to our community, and they would have already most likely come across our stories, through the TED Talk or the newsletter or the talks that you do, and we'll try and put it in the show notes, so to say, for people to go have a look. But yeah, there's a lot of story behind what we're feeling, and yeah, I just feel like it offered me a chance to get out of my head, and that reprieve that I felt when I was going through something hard after my mum was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and I was just on edge the whole time. And there was a moment, I remember it so clearly, it was a pub crawl my mates and I were doing, and we were going on the light rail it was just opened in Canberra, and it was called Lightly Railed, the pub crawl. And I just remember 30 minutes into, like, I think it was, we're at the Old Canberra Inn on our way into the city, and I just remember going to the bathroom and just thinking to myself, I haven't thought about how bad I've felt for 30 minutes. And it was just a little bit of a dose of hope that I would feel normal again. I was like, oh, thank goodness I haven't been in my head for quite a while. Because even when I was exercising at that time, I was still kind of thinking, like, I need to feel better. I want to feel better. But then that dose of, normalcy, getting outside of my head, which R4R does so often for me, it just gave me a bit of belief. I know we've spoken quite a bit about that, hope and belief, especially in the hard times. Some people lose hope that things will get better.
I certainly did. That was when I was at my lowest, was just the moment, and that wasn't in that first period when I first retired. It was at the end of the pandemic. I was so exhausted, and I lost hope that I'd ever feel good again.
Yeah.
And R4R was going at that point. It'd been going for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's a bit makes me scared to think what happens if I didn't have R4R during those few years to help me through the pandemic. That actually scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
But like you say, exercising on your own is awesome, and put the podcast in your ears or whatever, and it was music. But there's just something about exercising with others that's the bit that gets you out of your head. You're going side by side with someone, then you go and having a drink after, whether it's a water or a coffee or a beer, whatever. Yeah. That conversation, I think, is what gets you out of your own head, and you just. I've never had someone be negative after a run, like having that chat after. No. You do the run, you're getting the endorphins, and then you're having that chat after. That's just something that's just really easy that anyone can replicate. And that's what actually also gives me belief that Canberra could be suicide-free, is because it is so easy. It's so simple to do. You've just got to help people with the clutter of life. Like, there's so much coming at us. It's, meetings and kids drop off, and there's just so many things happening in life. That's why if it's at the same time, you don't need to text. You just rock up.
Yeah.
People can do that eventually. Like, they might miss it some weeks, but then eventually over time they fall into the habit, especially if they know that it's the exercising with friends bit is the bit that helps. So back to you with someone around belief. It's the fact that doing that, I think, is so easy. It's not some magical thing that's really hard to get. It is just actually exercising with friends regularly. And then the hard bit is, when people rock up, if they don't know anyone, like helping people make friends and build connections. That's something that, that's something we as a community, or especially, we think a lot about for people who rock up that don't know anyone. How can we get them to feel how you and I feel when we rock up to R4R?
Yeah.
That I think
super engaged.
Engaged. Yeah. They know that there's someone that wants to chat with them when they rock up. That's if anyone's got any ideas, let us know how we can make R4R even more welcoming for the people that are coming on their own.
Yeah, please do. And anyone ideas for the R4R podcast name, which would be good. I think we're rolling with
Road to Zero,
or the R4R pod, to resemble the rag that was so eloquently named. finding the hope and belief. I certainly drew inspiration from, because the hardest struggle of my life was before RFR. It was kind of the catalyst for us to get RFR going. I found inspiration or hope through other people's stories. Did you find the same thing through RFR, or did you have anyone that kind of gave you a bit of a North Star or a blueprint?
There was certainly something that didn't give me hope, but it just helped me realise that what I was going through is normal, and that everyone's got shit going on in the background. If they don't now, they've had something really shitty going on in the background or in the past, or they will have something shit going on in the future. And that was Lily Mooney, who we spoke about.
Yeah.
I'd known Lily through parkrun. This young girl who was much, much faster than me. Always see her at Yarralumma Parkrun every week. And then she started coming to RFR, and then I think we got to about 40 or 50 people, and I remember saying to you, Brainy, I go, who are all these people coming up? Like, they're saying, hi, Ben, and I felt bad because I didn't know their names. So I go, can we start a newsletter?
I think you wanted to start a Seinfeld neighbours board first.
Yeah, I heard the photos. Steve.
Yeah.
We get the newsletter going. It was a way of meeting people. And I said, look, you can, like today, I said, interview me, I'll be the first one, just to get the ball rolling. And we came up with a set of questions, and I just didn't really open up in them. I just sort of quick answers just to get the ball rolling, but I didn't open up. And then the next week you interviewed Lily, and she opened up about how she'd had an eating disorder as a child. She'd been hospitalised with anorexia. And I was like, wow, that's like super vulnerable. And then she came and showed, and I said, that saw her the next week, and so that was really brave, you opening up. And she showed me a photo of two of my Brumby's teammates, George Smith and I think Julian Huxley, had gone and visited her as a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, visited her in hospital. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. I would have never have known. When you know Lily now, you never would have known that she would have gone through such a really rough struggle when she was younger. And then the next week someone opened up, I think Singh, we might have interviewed Singh, but he talked about his
dad getting his leg,
losing a leg, having to take his dad to get his leg amputated. Someone else opened up about a suicide event. And there was a few months there where every Wednesday morning when the rag came through, it was this dose of reality for me that I needed, because I was like, shit, geez, all these people had really rough things happen, and it helped me put mine into perspective. Yeah, I'm going through, trying to find a new career and juggle finding a new career with supporting for a family, but it's just super normal. It helped me normalise my struggles, because I was caught in my own head thinking I've got this unique struggle that's no one's ever gone through before, and the rag helped me normalise struggle, because I think when you're on Instagram, you look and people just only share the highlights. So you think everyone else's life is amazing, but the rag helped me realise that everyone has something shit going on in the background. And if not now, they've had it in the past. And then when people share how they got through it, it was really refreshing for me, and helped me take the pressure off myself that I was, not doing all that great, and that I had, that I was struggling getting through this transition. That honesty, and through stories and the honesty and the vulnerability that Lily started is something I've thanked her many times for, because it's had a big impact on my life.
Helping people. I mean, there's a great charity, It's Okay to Not Be Okay, I think, but when it really hits home, it's not just words, when you actually, not comfortable, but when you accept that what you're in might be a bit rubbish, and it is what it is. It doesn't mean that it'll be there forever, but you can't not feel it. And I think that's one of the things that I struggled with, certainly, was I just wanted to get rid of the feeling that I was just on edge all the time. I was just like, how did I get rid of this? And so I would search and search and search. It's like sometimes you just got to be in it, and it is what it is. It's life, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. You kind of touched on one thing. I think it's something that it's not so much the source of whatever I've been through, but I think it was certainly the source of what my dad went through, is identity, who we think we are. And when that's shaken, I certainly thought I was. So my dad passed in 2010 from suicide, and I thought I dealt with it pretty well. Truly, at the time, it was a source of pride, because I'd gotten through it, and admittedly, it's one of the harder things apparently you can go through. So I was pretty proud that I was able to just, what I thought, get through unscathed. But I didn't know that I was adopting this naively optimistic mindset. I thought I'd adopted this great, optimistic, life is great as long as you make it so. And that my identity there was shattered when my mum was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, because it was like, whoa, I don't have control over this. And then, I was lost for a bit. But what do you think about identity and how, like, has it? I know it's played a role in your retirement from rugby and how you've had to transition.
Yeah, so my first started thinking about identity was after a tough loss to the British Lions 12 years ago. They're coming out this year, and we're gonna give it.
We're going to get them.
We're going to get them. But 12 years ago, it was an absolute dream to be a part of that series. So once every 12 years, the best of Europe they tour Australia, and 2001 they came and Wallabies beat them. And I remember as a high school rugby mad kid watching every minute of that series, and it's an iconic series. Australia win on the last minute of coming from 1-0 down to win 2-1 in the decider, and winning, Justin Harrison stealing the last that line out at the end to win the series. Just an iconic Australian sporting moment, and never in a million years did I think I would be a part of it, be a part of one. Anyway, fast forward 12 years, here I am. Got to lead my country out in the second test. It was my 50th, which we won on the bell thanks to a late Adam Ashley Cooper try and a conversion from Christian Leilifano. And then the next week in Sydney, it felt like 12 years repeating again. And the series is 1-1. We've come from 1-0 down.
Yeah.
80,000 people there. It was the main sort of sports story in Australia. All of Australia was watching. All the rugby world was watching. I was going to propose to my wife after the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got sent off 20 minutes in, and we got blown off the paddock. Like we ended up losing by a lot. Got flogged. I got sent off, and I really struggled to get over that. And I think, and looking back, I realised it's all because I'd allowed my whole identity to become Ben the footballer.
Yeah.
I'd gotten really good at it. I'd got lots of praise. And so I think it's a natural thing a lot of athletes fall into is it ends up consuming your whole identity, and that's the thing you're proud of. And if I played well and we won, I'd feel amazing. And if we lost, I'd feel like shit. But that loss, even though I got sent off, it wasn't all my fault. Like the whole team, we all as a team didn't play our best under pressure. But for a long time, because I copped a bit of the online, as I got sent off, I copped a lot of the heat. So I beat myself up thinking, I've let my nation down. My nation thinks I'm useless. But that's all because I thought that way because, I got all my self-worth from how I played.
Yeah.
And so it was super painful. And then later, and I sadly never enjoyed my rugby again while I was playing because through that. But it taught me, and I'm so glad I learned this early in life, that that's what happens when you put all your eggs in your identity all in one basket. Because then when something outside your control happens to knock that basket over, you're going to be in a bad way. And so I learned through pain that I've learned to diversify my identity. So I'm Ben the husband, Ben the son, Ben the dad, Ben the business owner, Ben the rugby player. I'm super proud of my career. But Ben the RFRA co-founder. There's just so many things that if one part doesn't get something out of our control, so RFRA gets shut down for whatever reason. Something outside our control happens, the government shuts us down, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah. You got other things going on.
Other things going on, and I'll keep going and try and get RFRA going again. But, same with the pub. It's not my whole identity because that just sets you up for pain when something outside your control happens to that one thing.
Do you think underneath, I mean, it's only coming to me now, but I certainly see it at RFRA, I think, where people identify as resilient. And so even if something falls over, something kicks in where you go, look, I've got these other things that I feel good about. But at the same time, I know that if something falls over, I'm going to keep trying. And I'm not going to let it, I'm not going to let that part of my identity fail. Do you reckon that, there's like a resilient identity?
I think definitely when it's raining.
Yeah.
You get people turn up in the rain and they're like, we wouldn't be resilient if we didn't come in the rain.
Absolutely.
So that bit, yes. As far as I'd never thought about I'm resilient, I'm funny, or I never looked at myself as I'm resilient or I'm gave myself character traits.
Yep.
I never looked, I just sort of, I don't know. I've never thought about it, my identity in that way. It was more the roles that I play in society was how I defined my identity.
Yeah.
But now I do feel like future challenges that will come, I'm not afraid of anymore because I feel like I've been through all these things and and I've learned how to try and get through them. I feel ready for them. Whereas kind of like you, I felt naively ready for retirement. So Dan Vickerman, teammate of mine, committed suicide a few years before I retired, and that was a real kick up the backside for me to try and get on top of my mental health because I'd grown up loving rugby, but then going to work was a drain because I had lost the love of it because of what happened to the Lions and having my whole identity tied up in sport or what I did for work. But yeah, Vix's death was a real kick up the backside for me. And yeah, so I'd research how the brain worked on our days off and then then I felt ready to retire. And then when I retired and grandma died and it was still in a bad way, that really rattled me, kind of like what you said before, that you thought that you dealt with your dad's suicide, but then something, again, outside your control happens to your mum, smashes that belief. So similar for that. And then the other thing that also made me really in a bad way and felt hopeless when I burned out at the end of the pandemic was I'd sort of retired knowing how important nutrition, sleep, exercise was, and I still was doing them as best as I could, and I still got depressed and still ended up in a bad way. That, again, really rattled.
Scared you a little bit.
That really scared me, scared me because I'm going, shit, I've done all this research and learned how the brain worked, and I thought I was ready, and here I am still in a really bad way.
What's going on?
But then learn, the role of community and that you need getting help is not a sign of weakness. That's sort of the other thing that I never spoke to people about any of it until I never talked about that Lions thing to anyone until you and I were running one morning. So I think the two conversations that helped me most after was that Lily and the rag, and then the one when you and I were running one morning on a Friday morning. I mean, we were running back towards the jetty. We'd gone to
I remember.
And we're running back, and we're talking about big games and
my big games.
And then where you watched it.
Yep.
And then you start telling me about where you were when you were watching the Lions game, that decider.
Yeah, in the States.
And you were getting a lot of details wrong, mate. I'm like, Brady doesn't even really remember this game. He's telling me about, and here I was thinking I'm going to be remembered for all this effort that I put in my rugby. I thought my career would be remembered as Ben, the guy that got sent off in that Lions decider, which is ridiculous. And I didn't realize that until having that conversation with you while we were running. Because the endorphins just helped me feel a bit better, and I could then actually talk about what was really in my mind.
Yep.
If you go and sit down with someone and you go, let's talk about identity, it's not going to happen.
No.
Like, it's just something that just happened naturally while we were running, and the conversation just
steers there.
Just ended up there.
And there's always a penny drop moment.
And the penny drop for me, I go, Brandy does not remember any of that. And I'm thinking, I'm being bloody ridiculous. There might be some people in the UK that remember me as Ben that got sent off, but I don't know those people. That has no impact on my life. And so that conversation with you helped me realise how ridiculous I was being and how trapped inside my own head I was.
Yeah. And I think you're on, like, we've spoken about this. You're onto something in terms of those conversations, sharing stories, hearing others going through different things but similar things. It helps you piece together whatever we're going through. I remember Sammy Wilson, Sobering Thoughts.
The great man.
Yeah. He once shared in one of his blogs that he was scared of suicide in a sense. This, the same way that you're kind of like, saying you were scared once all these things you were doing right didn't fix things. And that was something that, I'd written extensively about going through mum's diagnosis and dad's death, but I hadn't addressed the elephant in the room that I was worried that I could follow the same path as my dad for no other reason than just being same DNA, same genetics. But hearing somebody else voice their concern, it just sort of, it's a genuine concern. It allows you to then take one step further towards it.
But how did you unreconcile that your part of you is worried about that you're destined for suicide because your dad did, versus you've come up with the belief now that you're not destined for suicide? How did you hold those two thoughts in your head, or how did you go from thinking you're your dad's son, therefore you're at risk, versus?
I can't remember the penny drop moment, but I remember the path kind of to get there. There was a little bit of confidence in my sales from hearing somebody else had gone through it, and then
Gone through what?
the fear of suicide,
Yeah.
like that it exists. So it's like, okay, I'm not alone. I'll take a step towards it. Not suicide, that is, but the idea that I might be vulnerable, because it's like, okay, if I am vulnerable and I don't take a step towards it, then I'm just waiting for the fear to happen, So I need to address it. And then through that, like lots of writing, lots of journaling, kind of got to this idea that I was actually just afraid of death, which means that I've got stuff that I want to live for, my kids, wife, friends, all that's going on. But then also, I think what scared me maybe equal parts, maybe most, was losing control. I think that's the ultimate agency, right? It's like the last thing that you have control over is how you respond to something. And for a long time, and it's not entirely true, but it was thought at the time, when my dad passed from suicide, it's just 15 minutes of madness. That was the diagnosis or the analysis of what happened. So I was worried.
How you analysed it? It was just 15 minutes of.
Well, that's what people told me, and it's like, it kind of makes sense, because how else are you meant to digest your dad taking his life? It's like, it doesn't make sense in my mind. And in my mind as an 18-year-old going through it was like, why? And you're trying to figure it out, and people just offer you this 15 minutes of madness. And it's like, it's not true, but it sticks with you. It's like, what if I lose control one day? But like, when you think about it, what are you actually worrying about? You're worrying about something that's never happened in your life happening, and you're letting it dilute what you're afraid of losing, which is life. So it's like worrying about death because you like living actually ruins what you're trying to protect. And that was the moment where I was like, I'm letting this go too far, and I just need to trust that what I'm doing day to day, the way I want to react to all hardships, will be enough to get through all hardships. It's like you can't control what happens to you. You can control how you respond. And it's just, there's a lot of confidence in, and I think you have to give up a little bit of that. There is a risk, but it's not a risk that I'm letting control
Risk
me.
of what?
Oh, anything in this world happening. There's always a risk, and you just have to accept that risk exists. There is a risk one day that I lose control, but it's like, I think it's really small. But you just have to go, that's out there, but I can do these things to make these other probabilities or possibilities more likely to happen. And so it's a bit of a matter-of-fact way of looking at it. But it helped me. But journaling, writing was the main thing that helped me get through it, because it's hard to talk about some things. Like we said before, you don't know what you think until you can write about it. And I think sometimes it's hard to talk to people when you don't know what's going on inside your own head. It's like, how do we get people to that? It's like, we want people to talk and share their stories, but if they don't know what it is, how can they talk about it? And that's one of the, hopefully one of the things that this podcast does is it lets people know they're not alone, helps people put more understanding into their own story. They might hear someone similar, someone who's retired from sport might go, that resonates with me. It helps piece together part of the puzzle that gives them the next step to go and talk to somebody else about it. And because it's all a journey, right? There was one time where I never talked to anyone. I still don't really talk to people because I've got a good, I'm not afraid to, but I've got a good mechanism with writing and journaling and it's just, I think that was the main thing that helped me, for sure.
Start journaling, everyone.
Yeah.
The best.
You speak, and I think we wouldn't be doing this justice if we didn't, this podcast, that is, if we didn't explore something. Like, we've been always very careful with R4R and not speaking on behalf of people because it is a community-led movement. But now this is just us on the podcast, and we just want hosts and guests in the future to do the same exploration of mental health, what we think can work, what can happen. But I know you spoke about Dan Vickerman recently, and how people were pointing the finger at CTE as the main reason he took his life, and you're saying there's so much more that goes into it. And I remember when Paul Green, not my dad Paul Breen, but Paul Green took his life, the articles were always painted this rosy picture, and where did it come from? And I think, I don't know, you discussed there's all these factors that go into somebody's low energy, so to say.
Yes, I mean, CTE research, super important. We're not there yet. Like, they still don't know even how to diagnose it in people that are alive, and even if they can diagnose it, they don't know what to do about it yet. So I just feel that talking about CTE, while it's important that the research and that continues, to just that particular thing with Vix's death, I just feel people also want just one simple explanation for why it happened, or why someone in their family would take that message. And I don't know, I didn't know Vix's family. I only knew him through the 2011, through Wallabies, and we played 2011 World Cup together, and we hung out a lot, and he always asked me heaps about my broken leg.
Yeah.
So I'd broken my leg, had a metal pole in it, done that sort of 7 or 8 years earlier, and I'd managed to make a full recovery. But he'd done it a few years earlier, and so he was playing with a metal pole in his leg, and I remember it was agony for me.
Yeah.
Couldn't run on a treadmill. I could barely get through training. And I remember after training in England, I'd have to crawl up the stairs to my bed at the house where I lived in England because my leg would just be so sore.
Yeah.
And then when I got the pole out, that's when I really started recovering. But I remember Vic's always asking me heaps of questions about it, and about in the pole and all this sort of stuff. And then after that, and he told me it was really bothering him. And then when he retired sort of a year after that World Cup, I don't think he ever got over that. I don't know if he ever got the pole out, but I saw him not long before his death, and he looked terrible.
Yeah.
To be frank, and at the time I saw him. I actually saw him at the pub at the dock after a Brumby's Waratahs game. He must have been down with a past player event, and I went in and I saw Vix. Hadn't seen him for a few years. I go, mate, how are you? And he just looked at, about this much taller than me. He just looked down, just stared at me.
Yeah.
With his mouth open, and looking back, it was a cry for help.
Yeah.
He just stared at me, and so I don't know whether he got over and was able to keep exercising in retirement. Now, I'm not saying that he committed suicide because he couldn't exercise, but for me, if I didn't, exercising with friends was a massive part of me getting through stuff. It helped keep me fit, active, kept giving me energy to navigate challenge. And I don't know enough about Vic's childhood or what he was going through at the time, but it looked like he hadn't done a stick of exercise.
Yeah.
And maybe he'd formed other habits for dealing with stress in retirement. Because, but here's a guy who went to Cambridge, Sydney University, brilliant guy, family. And so that's why I feel that conversation and just saying it's all CTE, pushed back a little bit. And
on the fact that it's all.
I think they were overplaying the factor, because there's so much athletes can do and talk about identity and staying active with friends.
Yeah,
I had a few concussions while I was playing, and I can be happier now with how my brain works. But it's taken a lot of work to get here, and a lot of support from particularly my wife and my family to get to where I am today, where I enjoy my days as much as ever.
Yeah,
so I can be happy to be alive. So it just. Yeah, I know. And coming from a family with a dad he's a scientist, research, and I don't know. I just, that CTE stuff, I think potentially there's just society, we want to have just a little label. You've got this, therefore you need to do this, and then it's simple. It's all solved.
Yeah.
It's simple. And I know you and I've gone back many times about oversimplifying things, but at the end of the day, I just feel real. It just makes me sad to think about how much pain Vix would have been in to make that decision. And it was something I was in a lot of pain at the end of the pandemic, and glad it only lasted for a couple of months.
Yeah.
Because God knows if it had been a year or two being in that pain, not having the support that I had through the Brumbies, putting me in touch with the right psychologist, Galen Clues, who was an ex-athlete herself, who understood that journey and that transition from sport. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would be, but I was so like, yeah. It was first telling my wife, look, I'm in a bad way.
Yeah.
And then she said, why don't you talk to your dad? And then Dad convinced me to chat to another friend who then said, well, why don't then you go chat with Brumbies? And then chatting to my wife, then my dad, and then my good friend, the Dungeon Bard, who then convinced me to then talk to Brumbies and then talk to Rob and Duff at the Brumbies, who then put me in touch with Gayleen.
Isn't that interesting? The layers of community you went through.
Yes.
You went to
I
very
only spoke to my wife,
nucleus,
who
and
then said chat to my dad.
Yeah.
Who then said chat to who could you chat to a friend? So I chatted to the Dungeon Bard, Don Miller, and then he convinced me to reach out to Brums.
Yeah.
And then Robin put me in touch with a psychologist who is unbelievable at working with athletes in that transition, and she explained the science and helped me understand, how hard it is as an athlete when you're exercising all the time to weaning off it and dealing with real world stress. And
because that's a lot of levers being pulled, isn't it? That all helped.
Looking back, geez,
all helped create this, I guess, resilient safety net in a sense. It's like they're all working together to help, and the idea that if one of those falls over, I mean, the reason the CTE stuff resonates with me is because it, like you say, we just want to make it one thing so that we can fix it. One of the things,
especially this, no offense to scientific.
No, not at all.
But they, of course they're going to look at it from a scientific lens, and there is obviously some really important stuff that we can learn. But
fixing that does improve somebody's resilience, right? Like it is what it is. The thing that I think one of the things that contributed to my fear of suicide was articles like this that would paint this picture of not necessarily Dan Vickerman, but somebody else who he was a happy person. He had kids. We can't believe that he took his life. And you go, well, shit. I'm a happy person. I'm a happy person. I got kids. It's like, what am I not seeing is kind of where my mind goes. And I lay it over with the experience of my dad. And I don't share it too widely, but I will, obviously, because I don't want to soil his name, because he was a great man and a great father. But before my dad's death, he had an affair, and it kind of unraveled his life in many ways. Like, he wasn't eating right. He certainly wasn't exercising right. His identity was all in work. But when that news of affair kind of crept into the work realm, it kind of, in his mind, that's what he became known for. And I'm not trying to give a diagnosis for what happened, but everyone outside of our family unit was why? Like, they had no idea why he did what he did. I mean, there's a few people who knew of the affair, maybe could have put those two things together, but I think there's just all these different layers in somebody's life that can be used to help them through a hard time. But equally, if the layers start falling off, like you say, maybe, if something leads to a poor diet, then the poor diet leads to poor exercise leads to staying at home, poor sleep. And then all these things start falling off. You start losing layers in your resilient safety net. And I guess it's more of a conversation we need to have, broadly speaking, is that we have control over how many layers we can put in our resilient safety net. And we don't need to put so much power in one falling away and that being the end of days. I'm not really sure what I think on it, but yeah,
maybe you need to write about it more.
Yeah, maybe, but I felt like I wanted to put a little bit of vulnerable thinking up in the air on this, because I think this podcast can explore, especially hopefully we get someone like Gayleen on, other psychologists on to sort of help what we feel anecdotally true and what we are seeing anecdotally, what we're observing, and then have, the smart people in the room come and go, well, this is it, this is that, and who knows what will happen.
Well, and hopefully we can challenge the notion that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but it's actually a sign of strength. No one has all the answers.
No one has all the answers. And it's not about putting your hands in the air going, oh, I'm in a bad way, help, and being in victim mentality. It's going,
I'm struggling in this way, and then seeking out someone who can help you. And like I went through a phase of needing some professional help, but then I'm great now. I got sort of unbogged. I'm back.
And now you're helping others
And
as
now
well.
I'm helping others,
Yeah.
exactly. So like this sign that you actually need a bit of help, that it's weak, that's something, I don't know if I've ever thought it, but that maybe that was why I never sort of asked for help and tried to do it all myself.
Yeah.
That's something I guess I hope with this podcast, that people realise that getting the right professional help, because I totally get that there's some people that they go and get help, they're right, I go see a psychologist, and their psychologist doesn't get them.
Yeah.
They just don't click. I totally get that. So that's why the big thing with R4R, that what we're working Medicare Mental Health Services Centre to try and connect people to the support they need, to the right support, to the psychologists that specialise in the area if they're going through PTSD or marriage breakdown, whatever it is. Getting psychologists that can help people navigate those specific throws. That's I think a sign of intelligence, to go seek the right help.
Yeah.
Not. And I get, to just put your hands in the air and say, "Oh, I'm useless." That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about getting help.
Sort of evolving from what we think stoicism is. Isn't
Yeah.
it? It's like just not showing any weakness.
And that's a whole
acknowledging
nother
weakness and
debate
getting through
about
it.
stoicism, like what worked 2,000 years ago for the Greeks versus today.
Or for one guy, Marcus Aurelius. Yeah.
Like that's a whole nother. That's a whole nother potty in itself, I think.
Yeah, and I think on that, that's probably a natural conclusion, is we're about to start a whole nother conversation. So hopefully we have another conversation in the future. But we truly believe that Canberra can be suicide-free, and because no one is destined for it. But it's going to take a whole community to get there, and not just R4R, it's Men's Link, it's all the nurses, it's Lifeline, it's Uni of Canberra, it's
schools that are getting involved.
It's all the family units that act as that layer of resilience to all these individual stories. But 44% between 2021 and 2023, and hopefully the trend continues until 2024. But hopefully we can get some more guests on that add to the stories, add to the belief in individuals and in the community, and we'll see where this shambles of a potty goes.
Thanks for having me, Brady.
No, thanks for coming on. Thank you for watching the R4R podcast. If you want to get involved with R4R, head to the website, www.runningforresilience.com, or head to the foreshore for one of our runs. All the details are on the website. And if you want to sponsor this podcast, we're open to it. So get in touch.